ვიწყებთ შეხვედრას საუბარი მედეაზე, მითოლოგიისა და დრამატურგიის ძალიან არქეტიპულ და მნიშვნელოვან გმირზე. ჩვენი საუბრის დიალოგის მონაწილეები არიან ირინე დარჩია და ანდრეას ფლურაკისი დრამატურგიის საბერძნეთიდან. დავუთმობ მათ დროს და სცენას. გთხოვთ.
ქვია თარგმანი. მოგესალმებით. მადლობა მობრძანებისთვის. ხა გადავდივართ ინგლისურზე. ჩვენ ვისაუბრებთ ინგლისურად და შეგიძლიათ მოისმინოთ თარგმანი სინქრონში. Well, good evening. It's my pleasure to moderate this meeting today with a very well-known Greek playwright and writer and stage director as well, Andreas Flourakis. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the organizers of the festival for inviting Andreas Flourakis and also for inviting not only him but also another Greek writer, a very old friend of us, Dimitris Nolas. We had the pleasure to host Dimitris Nolas after invitation of Writers' House. So special thanks on behalf of the Hellenists to Writers' House. They give us possibility to meet and to discuss with their Greek writers. So, well, this is the first visit of Andreas Flourakis here in Georgia, in historical Kolchis. But after the conversation we had today in the morning and in the afternoon, I'm absolutely sure that this is the first visit only and the last one. It's important to know that Andreas Flourakis is somehow already known to the Georgian audience because one of his plays has been already translated into Georgian by our dear colleague, by Sofia Shamanidou, or Siamanidou, as she is known in Greece. This is Medea's Burka, which has been published by the publishing house Artanucci, together with two plays about Medea. And the authors of these plays are Lasha Bugadze and Nino Kharatishvili. So, and this is a very good and really must-have and must-read publication, which is called Three Medeas, and this is a very smart title of the work. I would like to say a few words about Andreas Flourakis. Well, he has studied cinema in Greece and theater in London, in UK, and he has written more than 20 plays, theater plays, and antiquity as one of the highlights or leitmotifs of his plays, and he has written two plays about Medea. And of course, it's not coincidence that he's here with us in historical Kolchis, in the country where this topic, this theme of Argonauts expedition and Medea is really extremely popular and extremely important. Andreas Flourakis has visited many countries, but I'm sure that his first time in the historical to the homeland of Medea, and his first time in the country where you may find the statue of Medea. Yes, we have it in Batumi, and also his first time in the country where you may find many women with the name Medea, despite the fact that she's not a very nice person after killing her children. Anyway, Andreas Flourakis' works have been translated in 13 languages, and maybe even in more languages, so in English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, German, Turkish, Romanian, Polish, Albanian, Hindi, Finnish, and Georgian. And his plays have been staged in many countries, in many cities like Athens, of course, but except of Athens, in London, Madrid, New York, Leeds, Tirana, Paris. And by the way, his Medea's Burka has been staged in Georgia as well. It was staged by Ivan Hutsishvili, and very famous young Georgian actress Endi Zidzava played Medea's role, and it was like a performance installation in the National Museum of Georgia. And unfortunately, I could not see this performance installation because I was out of the country at the time in April of this year. And but you may find the whole performance installation and uploaded on the YouTube, so it's really worth to see it. So Andreas got many different, very prestigious awards in theater for his plays, like, for example, a special honorable mention in the contest of the art theater Carolus Kuhn, selection by the Janus Project for new plays and new playwriting across Europe. Second prize at the One Act Play contest organized by the Municipal and Regional Theater of Rhodes. Third prize in the International Monodrama Contest of UNESCO International Theatre Institute, Writing in Residence Award of the Royal Court International Residency, Fulbright Artist Award, and so on and so on. And I'm very happy that Andreas Flourakis is now today with us, and we'll have a chance to discuss with him his plays and, in general, maybe modern interpretations of antiquity and especially Medea. So, before we start discussion, I would like to ask you to say a few words about your Medeas. In fact, as I mentioned, he wrote two plays. One is called Medea's Burka. This is the first play, and another is called Medea's Feet. The first one is translated into Georgian, the second one not yet, but I hope that it will be also translated. So, could you share with us the story of these two plays, these two Medeas? Yeah. In which languages these works have been translated, in which cities, in which countries they have been staged?
First of all, thank you for your warming welcoming. My two Medeas. Okay. Medea's Feet was written in 2013. It was an older idea, the idea of a younger Medea, actually, I had it in mind from 2003, and I kept some notes, but only in 2013 I started writing it. It was an idea of a young Medea's life until she leaves Colchid with Jason and the Golden Flea. It is a black comedy. This play has been staged in Greece in 2014, early 2014, probably January or February. And 2 years after that, it was produced in Stella Adler's school in New York with actors and actresses from this school, and it is published in Greek. The other play, Medea's Burka, was written before. It was written in 2010. It wasn't written in Greece. I was on a travel in Fujairah. Fujairah is a city in United Arabic Emirates. I was there because I was receiving a prize from UNESCO, the prize Irini mentioned before, and it was my first time in this sort of Arabic countries. It was the first time I saw two different kind of women wears hijab, burqa, and scarves. The first type was the poor one, the poor ones who wear these black burqas all over outside the main city. And inside the city was the other type of woman, the rich one, who wear burqas from famous French designers, and were very proud wearing it. Both of them were proud, but in the second type there actually exhibits the richness and how to be beautiful, elegant, and look rich wearing this sort of wear. That actually, the whole images somehow gave me the idea of Medea's burqa. These 10 days I stayed at the Emirates. I wrote the first draft, which I revisited in 2013. And I have a production of this play in 2014 in Athens. I don't do a lot of directions because I really find it a very difficult job, but this is a play I direct myself. It was, the production was part of a festival. The play was well received by the audience, and they asked me the next year to have a season for this play. 2 years after the play was translated in Albanian, and there was a reading in Tirana. I was there. The next year there was a full production of the play in Tirana, and the play moved around Albania in some cities that I cannot remember at the time. There is an unofficial English translation of the play made by me. A French translation of the play is on the way. A Turkish translation made by a translator and a very famous actress in Turkey called Esen Osman. This translation actually was published last year in Turkey. A new production of Medea's burqa is coming next year in Greece by one of the most prestigious theatres we have, named Thessalikon Theatre, and a very talented director called Kyriakis Panou. More or less.
Really very impressive story, very impressive destiny of both the Medeas. In fact, while thinking about today's meeting and about dialogue we should have, I was a little bit confused because I have a privilege to have read both Medeas, and it would be quite difficult for the audience to follow the discussion and maybe to understand Andreas, to understand the context of Andreas' plays, and I decided to play a role of spoiler, let's say, and to say very few words about the both plays. Well, I mean, Medea's burqa, Medea and Jason are already in Greece, and Medea kills Jason's uncle and his bride, But what's very important and what's very crucial, especially for the Georgian audience, which doesn't like the ending of Euripides' play, Medea doesn't kill her children. Medea puts one kid. By the way, both children are girls, and maybe we should discuss why you decided to change the gender of Medea's kids. And Medea puts one kid in one boat and another kid in another one, and sends both of them to her country, to her father, to Kolchis, saying greetings to his father. So the reader hopes that at least one of the boats will survive and at least one of the kids will survive. So it's very happy ending from the perspective of the Georgian audience, who believe that Euripides was paid to change the end of the story. And in this case, Medea is a woman from East, and she wears burqa, and the burqa is one of the symbols of the main, the essence of the play. And in another play, which is called Medea's Fate, another play is much more extreme, I would say, more provocative, more experimental. In this case, we see some new characters ended by Andreas, like brother of Medea, who is homosexual, and he's very close with his pet dragon. And here we have the medium, which is medium which predicts the future of all characters in the play, including Medea and Jason. And we have also the slave of Medea. And the ending of this play is also changed by Andreas. Medea, after getting the prediction from the medium, from the medium, decides not to go with Jason. But Jason manages to convince her to go with her. And the final scene, the discussion between Jason and Medea, Jason tries to convince him that she is not going, she won't kill her kids, her children, and Medea answers, "To pepromenon figin adinaton," which means you can't get rid of your destiny. So there's two absolutely different endings of Medea's story, of this Argonaut story, and could you tell us with a few words, why did you decide to change the ending? This έφταξε.
Yes, I really don't know how to answer to these questions. You start writing a play, and this play leads you to very different paths. In case of Medea's Berkham, the fact that her children were girls actually lead me to not actually she decided how can I put it? In those girls, she sees some parts of herself, and she decides to let this part maybe live in the future. So I believe it was the gender of her kids that actually leads me to have this different ending. If these kids were boys, probably they will have the same fate as in Euripides' play. To the second play, Medea's Feet, I didn't actually really change the story. of these both fictional characters. In the end, they are living together for Greece, but the only difference is that Medea knows the future, and despite that, she actually follows her heart, follows her instinct, and she only cares about the present. She doesn't actually care about the past or the future. It only matters for her is now, and now she feels that she wants to go with her lover, with the man she loves, and she goes.
Well, but when you read the play, when I read it, I was a little bit confused. I was not so sure.
Nobody is until the end.
Yeah. So, by the way, when I read this, both Medeas, both plays, Burka and Fleet, I had an impression, I was absolutely sure that the first part, the beginning, was Medea's fate, where, you know, Medea and Jason are leaving for Greece from Colchis, and then there was a continuation. But in fact, as Andreas told me, it happened vice versa. It was the first time you wrote Medea's, and why such confusion? And so you started with the end.
Yes, what I'm actually feeling is that I'm starting in the middle. I go, Medea's Burka is for me the middle part of, we find Medea in, I don't know, in the middle of her life, make a very serious decision about her children, and because this play led me to more serious paths for myself that I was intended to go while writing it. After a while, I felt that a comedy, a black comedy, a prequel of what happened to this woman before this dramatic turn in her life, somehow balanced the character inside me. That's why I start the middle and then I go to the beginning.
Okay, thank you. You have written some plays with the different ancient Greek characters like Atreides or Kirke or Priamos or Odysseus or maybe some other ancient Greek guys. And why you decided why you went back to Medea's character? Why Medea?
Yes.
Why you chose this very character, and why twice?
Yes, that's a difficult question for me because Medea, both Medeas, was written a decade ago. And what I can actually say about this is that as a playwright, as a writer, I use this sort of character as a vessel. Medea's vessel probably was proper for me at that time to fill this vessel with the material. I was trying, I was agonized, I was interested at that time. So Medea was the proper vessel for me to write the things I wanted to write.
Well, and now we're going to my questions, which should be somehow related to what you wanted to say, to what you wanted to write. So, well, they say that Medea's burqa is about the gender, about gender issues. It is not coincidence, of course, that you changed the gender of Medea's children and made them girls. So it's about refugees, it's about relationship, and it's about relationship on the personal level and about the interrelation of two huge worlds, East and West. And one of the features I found, one of the characteristics of your plays is kind of shifting of the paradigm. So you change the understanding, the perception of some very traditional, very common things. For example, all of us know that Medea is a foreigner, stranger, she's a barbarian. But when you read both plays, and especially Medea's burqa, you're confused, because you see that as you describe these characters, not only Medea, but also Jason is foreigner, Jason is a stranger, and Jason is not refugee but barbarian. And what about this shifting of the paradigm, this confusion, who is foreigner, who is barbarian?
Yes, this is true. When you start reading or seeing Medea's burqa, you have the sense that Medea is the barbaric character, but as the play goes by, you are not very sure who is more barbaric or more stranger in the play. Sometimes Medea feels more close to you than you probably think she is, or that you probably want to be. And this mixed emotion it was something that it was planned to be in this play, because during the 21st century, we experience actually, a lot of times we ask ourselves, who is the barbaric and who is not, who is the stranger and who is not, where is my country, and what is the other country, and in the end, where all of us feel like home.
Yeah, and one of my favorite phrases of Medea's burqa is the one Medea says, well, sometimes you feel refugee when you go out from your place and when you go to the work. So and from one side it's the play about the refugee, but in fact it can be, it should be understood in a more broader way when you feel stranger in your own environment.
Yes, in your own country.
In your own country, in your city, in your district, maybe even in your family.
Yes.
So this is another dimension of your plays. And while talking about this two worlds, I mentioned this East and West. Sometimes while reading the play, I had these mixed emotions. I was confused, which is foreigner, stranger, West or East? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes what we call East or what we call Europe it can be something strange, something foreign, and vice versa. And what about finding the East in Europe or vice versa? How do you feel? How do you perceive this interrelationship? And why you decided to stress this issue in the play?
I have the feeling that Georgia is very similar with Greece, because Greek people feel that Greece is in one leg in the west and in one leg in the east. And somehow I had the same feeling the few hours I'm here in Georgia. And this is sometimes very confusing, and in my country this East and West conflict sometimes switching parts without even understanding. So the idea of a person that somehow belongs to a global notion and be very particular about his /her identity was very intriguing to me as I was writing it. And this particularity was actually the main feature, the main characteristic I can detect easily on this Medea, especially on Medea's burqa, which goes beyond countries, goes beyond what she is wearing, goes beyond her burqa, and she is who she is and what she is, no matter what.
Well, I've read that Medea's burqa is a kind of skin for Medea. But from other side, you read the monologue of Medea, and she says that, okay, I will take off my burqa, but that nothing will change.
Yes.
Because I will be the same Medea with the same feeling, with the same perception of the world. Okay, I will wear the Western clothes, but what will change? And from one side, I agree that the burqa is Medea's skin, but from another side, even without burqa, Medea is as she is. In fact, for me, it's just a superficial, just a superficial symbol, maybe, something which doesn't really relate it to the real essence. And what do you think? Well, maybe this, maybe the title, and maybe this underlining of the burqa itself was somehow influenced by the tendency in many European countries of banning burqas?
Yes, of course it is that, and it was what I was already said, that I was inspired by seeing so many women with different sorts of burqa in the Middle East, and of course the burqa issue was very controversial one, especially in some countries in Europe, in Belgium and in France. This play stands somewhere in the middle, because myself as a playwright and as a person, I can see and I can understand the arguments for both sides. And what I can say and what I support is that anybody should wear whatever he or she wants, and I'm absolutely against, on the other side, if they push you to wear things that you don't want.
Yes, and what about the inside part, the real part, which makes Medea to be as she is without wearing burqa?
Yes, Medea sees what she is who she is, but she wants to wear burqa. This is what she wants. And even if she takes it out, which she does in the end of the play, after committing some murders, it's because without her burqa, and nobody can recognize her besides Iasona, because everyone has seen only her eyes. And without her burqa, she can't escape to abroad. And when she will be abroad, she'll buy a new burqa, because that's what she wants.
I already mentioned that in your place we see this shifting of the paradigm, this changing of understanding of some traditional things. And I noticed your perception of the sea.
Okay.
So, in general, in ancient Greek mythology, the earth is perceived as female, and the sea is understood as a male, something masculine. And even while we teach Greek, we always, ancient or modern Greek, we always say to the student that, okay, the names of the islands, they have this os ending, which is usually the masculine ending, but in fact, the gender, they belong to the feminine, you know. It's, for example, it's iskopelos, kalimnos, and things like this. So it's confusing. It's quite confusing for the students, but we explain it based on the mythology. So the earth is female and the sea is male. And while in your play, it's vice versa. It was so surprising for me. Why did you decide to change the gender of the sea?
It is a decision made by my character and not by me. She decides to find a friend in the sea, and the only friend that Medea can allow for herself at that time is a female friend. So she decides that the sea is female. And because the sea is female, in the end, she puts her children in two different boats and leave them go and maybe survive away from her. If the sea was a male for her, she wouldn't let her girls escape through sea.
Yeah, well, it's very much connected to one of the interpretations of Medea's burqa, that there are two different religions, two cultures, two desperate worlds, clash in a story of betrayal, a story about being a foreigner in an unfriendly country, a story about being a woman in a world run by men.
Yes.
So, and it's amazing to read such a play written by a male, which is it's a luxury, I would say, to some extent. Medea's burqa is a monologue, but when you read it, You have an impression that you have seen the performance, you have seen the whole movie. It's really amazing how he writes. And I absolutely understand all the stage directors who decided to stage your Medea, and I'm sure that there will be some other performances in some other countries and languages as well. And in one of the performances you personally staged in Greece, there was a poster or photo which you can find in the internet, by the way. It's an amazing photo from Medea's burqa. You see the photo of a female who should wear mask, something like mask, which is done from Georgian letters. Well, how it happened? And was it somehow related to the concept of the play, to the origins of Medea? How it happened?
This concept was an idea of an artist that was dealing with the poster of this play. When he wrote Medea, he felt that the words actually is her burqa, and you can see her right through.
Yeah, it was a little bit shocking from the first sight. It was shocking, you see, kind of burqa made of Georgian letters. But,
yes, I know.
Yeah, but in fact, it was quite impressive. There is, we know that in the university, we usually teach the classical literature, or even when we teach modern literature in many different languages, quite often teach older generation playwrights. But in this case, Andreas Vlourakis is exception, because his play, his Medea's burqa, became the part of our university curricula. We started, my colleagues, Sofia Siamanidou, Annie Chikovan, we started teaching his play to the students of modern Greek studies, and this exception for so young and still alive writer, you know. And and there's an amazing monograph about Andreas Vlourakis, about his works, his plays. And in the introduction of this monograph, the scholar writes that it's an exception to have a monograph about the playwright who still lives and who is in the beginning or in the middle of his...
or in the end.
No, it's too early. Yeah, you have done a lot, but still, you're in the middle of your professional career. So, and I would like to read a fragment of this monograph because it describes really very well the essence of both plays, in order to give you an idea about these plays, about Andreas' works in general. And if you have not read this, at least the Medea's burqa, it's I hope that after this discussion and this meeting you will read it. So a very short fragment of the introduction to this monograph. And frankly speaking, while I was reading it, I was a little bit jealous as a scholar, because I could not describe it so well. So it's about the characters of his plays, including Medea. From realistic and analytical everyday language to elliptical and elusive poetry, from political and social comments to family and erotic topics, from the tender and romantic lyricism to the extreme verbal and practical brutality, from the plausible and possible to the supernatural and the absurd, from innocence and the tenderness to perversion and cynicism, from the social adaptation to unconventional subversion, from literalness to irony, from seriousness to playfulness, from drama to comedy. So this is a really very good description. And from my side, I could say that there is a very strange combination of cruelty with irony. That this is amazing to have these both features. And when I read Medea's feat, especially Medea's feat, I had a feeling that it somehow reminded me Boss Medea. Boss is a very well-known playwright in Greece, but really he was not as lucky as you are, and he's not very well known abroad. And in Georgian, only very small, very close circles of Greek-speaking professors and students have read his plays. They have not been translated in Georgian yet. And it seems to me that it's a continuation of Boss' line somehow, to have this satiric, ironic, even grotesque, parodic interpretation of Medea, which you don't find, which is quite rare, not only in Greek, but in the world literature. And could you say a few words about your interrelation with the Boss?
I admire Boss as a playwright and as a writer in general. Probably his plays is not translated abroad because it's not easy to translate because of the rhyme. Rhyme is a very painful thing for translation, so you translators in this room, you know about it. I have respect to any playwright who doesn't fear to deal with characters or previous plays that are supposed to be are sacred, and Boss is fearless. He doesn't care about anything but make the audience laugh and think politically. So I'm a huge admirer. I don't, subconsciously I could have have it in mind, but consciously what I can say is when I wrote those plays, I didn't have Boss in mind. Probably if I had him in mind, my plays would be a lot of better. No.
Still they're amazing. They're really masterpieces, and I'm really privileged to have read both of them. In the beginning of our meeting, I mentioned this smart title of the edition of this publishing house, Arte Anugi, about 3 Medeas. And I would like to see another publication, Boss Medea, your Medea's feat, and maybe the third Medea, this ironic, parodic interpretation, and to have another 3 Medeas of you and some other authors as well. We'll see. Well, we still have time left, but before I move to some other questions, maybe somebody in the audience would like to ask the question. There's a really unique chance to ask questions about Medea, the Greek guy who has thought so many times about this, the most famous Georgian woman. Well, whether your interpretation, are you going to change this history? Vrda konkretot. So you change the form, you change the content, so you change everything, the whole story or the whole history. I'm going to partner.
On the Swiss that is happening, is your intention to change the history?
I don't consider Medea history, but even if she was...
But you're in Georgia, you know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's a joke.
Okay.
Oh, it's a joke.
Okay. But even if it was a historical person, for me, it doesn't really actually matter. You know, I use whatever I need for writing a play, whatever actually inspires me. Of course, in my mind, is that I'm trying to pay attention and be respectful to my audience, but you know, most of all, and first of all, what I am caring most is to be true to myself, and my main goal, because after working for the theater 20 years or more, you get easily bored, is not to get bored with my plays, myself.
Thank you. Dear. Will there be the ending of the interpretations of Medea?
I don't know if I understood the question well, but I am intending, and I don't know why, I am intending, I have in mind to write a third Medea play. I don't know if this will eventually happen, but I have a concept of Medea's return at the end of her life to her homeland, to see if she recognized anything about this land or about her younger self in this land.
Yeah, we are looking forward to this, to the third Medea. It will be translated for sure. Well, and I remember when Mikhail Marmarinos, another famous, well-known Greek who came to Georgia in 1999, first time, and then now from the time he's very close to Georgia, after getting married, a Georgian woman, and so on and so on. After staging several performances here, I remember he told me that before he came to Georgia, he had already staged Medea Material by Heiner Müller. And he told me that after arriving in Georgia, after getting acquainted with the country, he understood the play by Heiner Müller in a totally different way. He even told me that I understood that my understanding was wrong. Well, now I don't agree with Mikhail that his understanding was wrong, because I don't believe that there's only one understanding of the same play. But anyway, Georgia made him to understand Heiner Müller's play in a different way. And let's see what will, if your trip to Georgia...
I keep taking notes. Today we had a tour around the town, and I was taking notes about this play. Good. Let's hope that it will lead somewhere.
Okay, we're waiting for the impact of your trip to your third play. Please, Gitmed.
There are a lot of radio versions of Medea's story, playwrights, and you have your favorite
there are many interpretations of Medea's story, Medea's myth, by many different writers, authors all over the world. And which is your favorite interpretation, or the great question?
Unfortunately, you haven't read my favorite interpretation, but is what Irene mentioned before, this playwright, Bost. It is actually a hilarious Medea, which I really enjoy every time I am reading it and every time I'm seeing it in the theaters.
Well, so we should translate it and publish it here.
Yes,
maybe
you should.
Together with the Medea's feats. A question, yeah.
So we have a lot of interpretations. You wrote 2 versions of it yourself, and so. But what's the thing that matters about Medea?
What?
What's the thing that matters, that still matters, and makes us, I don't know, get passionate about our story?
You're right. I don't know. You're right. You are right. I am asking myself the same question. You know, why? Why Medea? Of course, it's a very controversial character, but still, in a very strange way, very close to our human instinct and to our soul, probably.
Very provocative answer.
Well, from our perspective, from those of us, what we know and what we think about Medea is like she was someone who could cook some medicine. That's where the word medicine is coming from. Medea is medicine. So she made some poison and she poisoned her family. Well, does your character, does your Medea make sense?
Make?
Took some poison.
Yes, she is. In 2 Medeas, but in my Medea's Burka, her favorite person is her aunt, Kirki, Circe, which she considers her as a woman who knows the medicines very well, and she taught her their technique. So yes, in a way, Medea, my Medea knows about medicine. But in the Greek language, and I'm coming back to this playwright, the Greek playwright I mentioned before, Bost, Medea is close to a seafood. I don't know the word here in... And his interpretation are actually more funnier than mine.
Well, and you have 2 Medeas.
Okay.
Both of them have been staged and translated abroad. And which is more popular and why?
Well, Medea's feat is very popular to young audience and academics. The other Medea, Medea's Burka, is more popular to the rest of the audience. There are people, of course, that they consider these 2 Medeas as the different sides of the same coin, and I can see that.
Yeah, and I agree with the scholars because I also decided to write an article about your Medea. So it's very inspiring. It's a very good material for the scholars to think, to analyze, to interpret. Please, your question.
Thank you for your presentation. I have a question. Between Georgia, there are some fights. Some of us think that Medea is a real person, but some of us think that
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Between Georgians, there are some fight. Some of us think that Medea is a real person, and some of us think that she is just mythological and literature person. How do you think? She was a real person or just person in the myth or in the literature?
For me, it's a fictional character, but I wish she was a real person.
We also.
Thank you. So in fact, have last very small questions. The one question, in fact, doesn't have answers. Well, by the way, my question has too many answers, and because of too many answers, there's no one answer to this question. Why antiquity?
Oh my God.
But this is traditional question I ask every writer, every stage director, every painter who deals with antiquity in their plays.
Yes, it is a difficult question, that's for sure, and probably another artist could give you a very meaningful explanation, but myself, I would say to you, why not?
Okay, good. I told you there's no answer. So thank you very much to you, Andreas, for your first visit in Georgia, and special thanks to the organizers and to the place.
Thank you for having me.
And we are looking forward for the Georgian translation of Medea's feat and also for the third Medea of Andreas Flourakis.
Let's
Thank
hope.
you. ძალიან დიდი მადლობა.
შემდეგი ღონისძიება გარეთ გაიმართება სერგეი ტიმოფეევი ლატვიიდან და დმიტრი სტროცევი ბელარუსიდან პოეზიის საღამო.